and they get a stipend. So that's our way of sort of helping sort of generate that interest and encourage youth to sing. We currently have three right now, two from South Lakes and one from Langley High School. We also offer some free concerts throughout the year. So the holiday tree lighting, we participate in that at Reston Town Center. We participate in Founders Day, Caroling on the Corner, and then the Saturday of Memorial Day at Reston Town Center in the Pavilion, we do a free concert, a patriotic themed, it's called Star Spangled Salute. And we do that with the Brass of the Potomac. They're a really fantastic brass group that performs with us. We also collaborate with some of the other organizations. So last year we did a concert that was with poets and artists, and that was really fun. So Pat McIntyre's artists and then the poets of Virginia collaborated with us, and we did a concert together at RCC. We live at RCC, and we do our rehearsals there each week, and our performances. Some of our performances are there. We also are collaborating with the Garden Club on our annual Gardens of Note tour. So those are some of the ways that we give back to the community and also are working together.
So another huge milestone that's coming up this year is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. That some of you remember the first Earth Day. Pretty exciting stuff. And those kinds of movements that were about getting people involved is all about the building of the community. And I would say that when you do get the chance to dig in the earth with somebody, plant a garden, plant a tree, see it grow, see it thrive, maybe see it fail and have to go back, try something else. It really creates some strong bonds of people that go back and go, oh, I remember I was the person who put that beauty bush in there, and look at all the butterflies, coming to it now. And it's a sense of pride in your community, and it's a sense of working together, because so many of our environmental projects are definitely hands-on. When we dig in or chip in, we're not just using that as a turn of phrase. So it's really exciting to go out there with a lot of different people, sometimes who've never done that before. A lot of us that grew up in Reston, we did have little gardens or go out on the trail and do stuff, but we have a lot of turnover in this community now. There's a lot of people who have never planted anything or thought that they'd even want to. And it's fun to get them out there. We have corporate work days that are also involving the businesses that are moving to Reston, and they don't show up ready to dig in. They're like, I'm in my work clothes and you want me to get dirty? And we're like, yeah, I think you'll like it, And a lot of them do, not all of them, but a lot of them come back. And so we're building new partnerships also with the business community in addition to the residential communities that are around us. And we work closely with the Friends of Reston. I happen to be the executive director of the Friends of Reston, which is based at the Walker Nature Center. If you might recall, the Friends of Reston led the capital campaign to build that facility, and it was everybody helping out. There was over 1,000 individuals and organizations that said, yeah, we want that third part of the dream, the Nature Center, to have its education building, and we're going to grassroots this. We're going to do it person to person, organization to organization, and we're not going to use any of the Reston Association assessment that we all pay and want to know where that goes. It wasn't for the design and the construction. We did that hand to hand, person to person, and it was very affirming of the commitment that people still have here in the community. And now we were happy to just celebrate the 10th anniversary of the opening of Nature House this past November. And it's a place, the only day we're closed is Tuesdays. We're open to the public for anybody to drop in. There's no fee to come inside the building or any of the trails. And we encourage people to do that. And our collaborations with groups like the Reston Garden Club mean so much, because we have to have people to welcome people and give them maps and answer questions. And the Garden Club is over 50% of our welcome desk volunteer force, and they've done close to 10,000 hours of volunteers at the desk. So we offer a lot of ways for people to come out and volunteer and get involved. We've kind of added that to the slogan of Reston, our motto, live, work, play. At the association, we also say, and get involved. And every year we're really amazed at how much people will do that for their home and for the environment.
So there's a few different ways that we've done some community building and given back to the community. We just did a talk back for Anne Frank where we had the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. We had a member curator from the museum come, and the cast and the director gave a talk back for Anne Frank, and that was a really meaningful discussion. We've had other talkbacks when we did Next to Normal about mental health, and so we had, I think it's NAMI is the organization. We collected donations for them, and we had them come and we did a talkback about mental health. We actually just started an initiative called Access to the Arts, where we're offering blocks of reduced cost tickets to students for educational shows. So of course Anne Frank is very powerful and something that we want students to be able to see. So we've offered reduced cost tickets for that. And then we're going to be looking towards any other productions that we're doing in the future for that type of offer. We've also done sensory sensitive performances to help our neurodiverse community be able to attend theater. For me, this was really powerful because, sorry, I'm getting emotional, because a lot of times they don't get an opportunity to come and see theater. Because of the different rules that are in place, the lights are down, there can be bright lights, really loud sounds, and so this is an opportunity for children, even adults who have a neurodiverse, be able to come and see a theater, which is just, to me, is so exciting for them to be able to see something like that and not have to worry about all those social rules that are in place. We're performing at Founders Day this year, so we're excited about that. We performed at Reston Pride, we performed the first year and last year, and so really looking forward to that. We have what we lovingly refer to as the Rusties, which is our little Tony Award ceremony. I know it sounds silly, but we made this free to all our volunteers who have volunteered through the season. They can come and we just celebrate them, and we have a fun party. We award awards. We have our audience members participate by voting for their favorite performances. So this is a way that we kind of give back to our volunteers for all of their time and commitment. We also have done, we've participated in the holiday parade, and we also, we have a wide collection of costumes and props and furniture pieces, and so we rent that out at reduced cost again to schools and other community theater organizations, and so these are some of the ways that we've tried to give back to our community as well.
Okay, I guess the Garden Club, I talked about several of the projects that we've done over the years. A couple of things that I hadn't mentioned yet. You may remember, if you've been around long enough, in the early years, we were the ones that did the Christmas house tours and the garden tours in the spring. We had flower shows, we had open houses, and later the holiday green sale, and that ran for like 20 years, where we would prune greens from around Reston and our gardens and other people's gardens and on Reston Association property with their permission, and would condition those greens, make arrangements and wreaths by hand, and sell them at the various community village centers. And we made thousands of dollars on that every year, and those were that money was what was used to do some of the large plantings, which were, for instance, on the Wheelie Avenue Bridge, which used to have a nice wide median with trees in it that we had planted, and then that got torn down when the bridge was widened for the coming metro. But things like that have been done in the past, and then the thing that we really still maintain and spend a lot of time on is the garden outside the Reston Regional Library. There's a sculpture garden there, a sculpture which we commissioned and paid for, which was done by a local artist. And then the plants are replaced seasonally, so it's always beautiful. We get so many compliments on that. So we do that as a hands-on activity. And we participated in Arbor Day many times and Earth Day at the Nature Center. And many other things, but that'll do for now.
So Reston Fish started in 1969 when there was a local family whose house burned to the ground, and the neighbors came together to help this family out, and the need was seen in the community. And from there, it's just grown, so that in 1974, we actually got our nonprofit 501c3 designation. And in terms of building community, we found some other needs. There were some things that we used to do that we then turned over to other organizations. I think one of them was maybe, got it here somewhere, the food bank, thank you. And we used to have a crisis hotline, which we turned over to the county. Our volunteers used to work 24/7. But we have a fish fling every year, and this year I was taking a little different direction, although now we're going to postpone it due to current health crises. And as part of that, I was bringing in other organizations to perform. So like the Reston Chorale's bobby pins are going to perform in our fish fling. South Lakes High School's Do-Re Migas are going to perform. So we're trying to build within the community. At the holidays every year, we have a food and gift program where businesses throughout the community donate food to us. We've had a couple of the banks, like M&T Bank, collect toys for us. This past December, we helped 500 families. And once all the schools, we have 4 in Herndon and 4 in Reston that recommend families, and then we work with the Community Service Board. They recommend some families in a few other places. And if there are any food bags or toys left over, we bring them back to the Connections for Hope Partnership, and all of the nonprofits who are part of that, including the county's Women, Infant, and Children, can participate, provided they fill out one of my forms, and take home a bag of food and toys for the holidays. So trying to build that up. I think Cornerstones and Fish are a little bit different from our friends down this side of the table who are more performing arts or nature center oriented, whereas we're more helping those in need and trying to build the community and keep those families stable within the community so that they can turn around and pay it forward, so to speak.
Exactly. The community building is what Cornerstones does. Cornerstones was begun by 6 faith organizations in Reston, and over time that grew to 12. So, and many of our volunteers, who number in the thousands today, come from faith groups across our community. And they pour their heart and soul into building this community and helping those who turn to Cornerstones when they're in need. But we partner with the businesses, and this is a boom town, if you've noticed, along the Dulles corridor. So we are looking constantly to pull them into our community and help them to embrace the Reston values of giving back to everyone, so it's an inclusive community. But Cornerstones is all about building community, and we want everyone, from the poor, the working poor, up through all those people who are going to live in those apartments that are going up everywhere right now, and who will be productive in this community to feel like they're a part of it. We build community by hosting things like Cap Steps. Cap Steps has been around forever. The Best of Reston, because then we pull everyone together to celebrate the success of being an inclusive community.
I think community building is intrinsic to Reston. I think that it's sort of the DNA of Reston. It was an invented place, but there are lots of invented places. An invented place isn't real until people are in it, and the people in it do their own inventing and do their own creating of community that's built around interest, but also community that's built around the idea of sharing. And because of that concept of sharing and being mutually supportive, this community built its own institution. So we joke all the time about Reston's alphabet soup. The ROA turned into RA, the RCA that was first it was citizens and now it's community, Reston Community Center, RCC. There's the RCP, Reston Community Players, Reston Chorale, RC. There's the Reston Children's Center, the other RCC. There's LANC, there's RHT, and when people come here, I think it's challenging for newcomers to sort of get a sense of, well, what do all these acronyms mean, and what is going on? And one of the things we are trying very hard to do now is really reach out into the newer parts, the corridor, and activate those places with content. We often work with the Chorale or with the players or other of the community's talent, the trust, to bring programming, bring content, bring activities into those new landscapes in Reston, and help people feel that they're welcome and they belong to some place special, that it's filled with special, cool, fun people, and that there are great things to do here. So I think the idea of building community is sort of the DNA, the RNA of Reston. I don't think the Reston we all know and love would be possible without that being intrinsic to all of our work.
I love those answers. It just really does speak to Reston. And in the history you've had, very diverse groups here, and we've heard some of the great things that happen. In building community, there's always sometimes a little bit of challenge. So if you're willing to share, what were some of the challenges over the years that your group might have experienced, and how did you overcome it? Some people, they get to that bridge, and it's too much, and they stop, and so they're no longer part of the alphabet soup. But if your organization, can you maybe share some things that you might have faced in your history and then you overcame those challenges?
So I think for us, there are always challenges when the community is changing or evolving or growing, or when there are crises whether there are crises in organizations or crisis in the community in terms of addressing difficulty. The young lady who was murdered, I think, was a moment in this community when people desperately wanted to try to make sense of something that was really senseless, and to try to wrap that family in the arms of the community and help convey some meaning to that family of how much love there is in this community, to try to help heal. And I think those are the moments when the strength of these connections between and among organizations and between and among the people who are involved in these different organizations really help bridge the moment or get over the hump. And I think for us too, we have a strong belief in process. So we're sitting in a building that Bob Simon purchased and turned to RCC, and at the time also to Greater Reston Arts Center, Grace, and said, I want you to activate this building. I want you to create something in it that the community can take advantage of. And so we engaged in a conversation with the community at that time about, should we do this? Should we take the capital resources that we had and the ongoing resources that the tax district, which RCC is the beneficiary of, and put it into a second facility? And at the time, even though we're all sitting here and we all love this space and we all are used to coming here and enjoying it, it was not universally acclaimed at the time. It took a lot of community conversations, it took a lot of research, it took a lot of debate, it took a lot of healthy discussion, and at the end, you know, after going through that process, the Board of Governors at the time determined that, yeah, it was something worth exploring. And I think that having those processes, having a history of community dialogue, helps you get beyond and through those moments of maybe disagreement or skepticism, or people not necessarily feeling like, oh yeah, gung-ho, let's do that. So that was a challenging moment in RCC's history, and I think we've benefited by the process that was involved then. And then in 2008, and I think similarly to now, there was a crisis, an economic crisis, and so the community center was looked to for support, for sustenance in some cases, for some of our organizations in the community to partner, to co-sponsor things, to commit resources to events and activities. And that provided us with an opportunity to strengthen the community's feeling about possessiveness, about needing these organizations and not letting any individual organization's economic circumstances force them out of existence. And I think building those kinds of muscles are the right things for communities to do if they want to weather crises. And we're going to be going through something very similar. I don't think this virus event is a small thing, and you know, I don't want, we certainly don't like to spread panic or uncertainty, but there will be uncertainty because there's a lot of unknowns. And so having an institution like RCC with our resources will help problem solve all the way through it until we get through it and beyond it, and figure out ways to, you know, to help sustain the kinds of access and support that organizations and people will need. If a whole bunch of performances are canceled, how do you manage that fiscally? How can we help get through that rough patch? Or if there are community meetings that can't occur because the government decides that they need to move into mitigation instead of the phase we're in now. So we just are an institution standing ready to help put resources to problem solving, which is again, that's the Reston way.
That was a great answer. That was great. One of the challenges, like I mentioned earlier, Cornerstones was originally called Reston Interfaith, and it was founded by faith organizations. As the community grew, so did the needs grow for human services and social services. But funding did not. And that was a huge issue in those early years for a small, emerging nonprofit. And about a decade, somewhere around 1980, Cornerstones figured out, and the county figured out, how to partner effectively, so that now the county sees Cornerstones as its boots on the ground to help with services like the Emery Rucker Shelter. They fund Cornerstones, but it took for about 2/3 of its budget. It's a $12 million organization now. So we rely on the county relies on us. But until we figured out that partnership, things were very touch and go. And I see Lynn here, and Lynn probably could go through all of those very, very touch and go moments in those early years to try to stabilize the organization. But when we partnered with the county, that's when things did stabilize. And then the other challenges were developing large pools of volunteers, that community building, securing effective executive leadership, which she's not here, but I can tell you, Carrie Wilson's a treasure. So she wouldn't want, that was not in any of the notes that she gave me tonight, but I will let you all know she's a treasure to this.
Don't tell her that.
Yeah, don't tell her that I said that, please don't. Ralph, you hear that? And then we've worked a lot in the past decade about to strengthen our board governance and to make sure that's very tight and that our finances are very well managed and that we have a very strategic outlook on things and that we're constantly looking into the future about what the human service needs of this community will be as Reston grows. So those are the challenges for something that's an anchor organization for Reston like Cornerstones is.
Wow, I could almost say what they said. Similarly here, as the community grew, there obviously the need for our services grew, and funding has always been an issue. Probably most recently was for fiscal years 2019 and fiscal year 20, which we're in right now, we lost our county funding. So as a result, the board dipped into reserves a bit, but we also had to decrease the amount that we could offer those in need when we got a referral. We're very hopeful about this next round of the county consolidated funding pool determinations, but I keep telling my board, don't count your chickens. So, and we were lucky in that the former executive director found a huge grant that provided us not nearly what we got from the county, but a huge grant for each of the 2 fiscal years. So that was quite helpful. But right now we're gearing up for COVID-19 coronavirus, and we're expecting there to be an increase in referrals because all those employees who are not salaried, and if the federal government doesn't come through with funding for those folks, we will see an increase in requests for rent help, utility help, and medical prescriptions. That's a huge one. So that's what we're looking forward to now, and it will probably be a major discussion at our board meeting on Monday.
Okay, for the Reston Garden Club, I guess our biggest challenges has been kind of the changing demographic over the years. When the garden club started, Reston was a new town and a lot of young families with mothers who stayed at home with their children. And so they were anxious once the kids got out the door to go to school to do something for the community. And they got out there and they worked hard and they did a lot of these wonderful projects. But then somewhere in the 80s and 90s, the trend became that mothers were working too. And so there were fewer young women that were home for our daytime meetings or our work projects. That you have to garden in the daylight. So that made a big difference in the demographic of our club. And so as the club aged, some of the people who were active early on did come back, like myself, after I retired. And found that many of the other people that I had known in the 70s were also coming back. So we still have that community feeling because we've known each other a long time. And so even in the 80s, though, they tried to come up with something to be creative to build the membership or to provide information to people who weren't at home all day. So they had an evening TV show. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but it was on Warner Cable with Sherry Wubbles. And she talked about gardening practices and had demonstrations. I demonstrated my growing of sprouts. Do you remember the sprouts phase? I had jars of sprouts. So we tried the TV program concept. I think that lasted for about 2 years. We've tried evening meetings, but people just don't want to come out to evening meetings, and so we've ended up continuing to have our daytime meetings, and we have an older demographic, but we all love each other, we have a great time, and we're very community-minded.
I would say, like a lot of community theater organizations, it would be performance space, and one of our challenges was performance space, which we don't have now, and rehearsal shop space, right? So through our history, we had to move around early on before the RCC was built, and we are one of the founding members of RCC, and before that, like even I think we were Brown's Chapel had burned down. So, finding that stable performance space where we are so fortunate to not have that challenge now, where we have RCC, where we can perform. And for rehearsal space, a lot of people have to rent school spaces or go to people's homes, or, garages. You build sets in people's garages, so Lindsay Peterson, Clemson, right? Before she was married, was a member. She started in 1970, and she was a very active member, and she bought 3 sections over there in the business park, Sunset Hills Business Park, and rented it back to us very cheaply, and then when she passed away, she actually left it to us. So we now have our own rehearsal hall, shop, and office space, and that is very rare for a community theater organization. So that was probably one of our challenges in the past that we've had. I think another challenge is when we pick shows, and the things that we decide to perform, we have that line of, okay, satisfying our audiences, giving everybody what they want to see, the feel-good shows, the ones that people want to come out, and maybe challenging people, maybe making them not happy. We sometimes people aren't happy. We get some interesting comments on our ballots. We want feedback, obviously, but sometimes we do get feedback that is, I didn't like that. That was awful, or But hey, that's art. Sometimes people aren't going to like it. Sometimes they're going to love it. Sometimes it's going to make them uncomfortable. So that's a challenge that we deal with. The other challenge is volunteer. I think like some of the other people mentioned here is volunteer resources. So we need volunteers in order to build and put on our shows and yes, sewing. Just run. We have our own facility to run that facility. So we do compete with it's a very robust theater community in the DC area, and so we do compete for volunteers, and so that's another challenge that we've had, really trying to keep the next generation coming in, keeping young people coming into our organization. So as we all get older, and maybe we want to do something new or something different, we have people to come in, almost succession planning, right? You want to have people come in who are going to keep the organization continued throughout the years. And as everybody mentioned, money, right? Money is always, I think, we go through these phases in this country where the arts are very supported, and then they are the first thing cut. So that includes facilities where art is performed or put on display. So, kind of weathering those different storms of the art being the first thing cut. I think we're in an age now where we understand how important art is for educational purposes, for life, for people to be well-rounded individuals, and but it's still always kind of the first thing on the chopping block, unfortunately. So, weathering those different storms of funding. I think those are some of the main challenges that we face.
So when I first became manager of the Walker Nature Center, I would get invited to participate in forums like this or be interviewed for articles about Reston's hidden treasures. It was both a compliment and a big problem because we don't want to be hidden. We like the treasure part, but communications and getting the word out about who we are, what we do, and how you can get involved was a really big challenge. And it continues to be a challenge. You know, we are always looking for new ways to market and do outreach and get people out to our site and invite us out to the natural areas near them. And you have to make concessions and you have to be willing to change, you know, at times. Because I never wanted a Facebook account. I had friends and I knew who they were and they knew who I was and we did things together. And, and I love my friends. But social media is a huge part of our current marketing at the association with the Nature Center. I'm a page administrator, and it's a good thing. It's really helped our participation to grow. And a common pitfall in the environmental field is that we preach to the choir all the time. The people that come out and want to learn the latest about recycling are the people who are recycling. And this happens a lot. So it is always a challenge to go out and be willing to meet people where they're at. And earlier I talked about the land. I will also add that, you know, a constant challenge for us as a landholder of 1,300 acres in a more and more urbanized environment is very challenging. And to constantly let people know who you are and how you feel about it is, you know, where do you have those conversations? Because public trust is essential. I mean, this land is next to all of other people's property and projects, and they want to know what we're doing with it, and will it be protected, and how does the Nature Center feel about that, you know? We get that question a lot. So we found time and time again that the solutions are not to close people out, but to let them in and know who you are and what your values are, and find that common ground, because underneath a lot of our differences are a lot of commonalities and values that we share, not just in Reston, but in the greater community, and I think in humankind. So we work together to solve our problems. We seek out a lot of partners, whether it's financial partners like the Friends of Reston, programming partners like the Reston Community Center. They help us, you know, when we really need a sponsor for that 5K race or someone to help with the entertainment for Spring Festival. We know we have friends in the community, and it makes a huge difference.